they were common in the Priorat County. And Priorat County, only 25 years ago, only Priorat was existing as an appellation. Montsant was created much later to differentiate the wines from Montsant and from the Priorat. So then they both live together. So it's like a marriage, and then they market the wines differently. They do completely different things. But yes, all the county was planted in Garnacha and Cariñena. Probably you will find also a bigger percentage of white grapes in Montsant than Priorat. So Priorat, it's almost 95, 96% is red, and Montsant has a 20% varietals on white. So also that makes the difference.
And what are those varieties? Garnacha Blanca, I think.
Garnacha Blanca, Macabeo also, and Pedro Jimenez. But Pedro Jimenez, as you may know, you might know Pedro Jimenez from the sherry area in Spain in the south. Here it's made as a still wine. It's not made as a oxidative wine or a oloroso or fino or manzanilla. It's only made as a still wine, and it's blended. It's blended with Garnacha and Macabeo because Pedro Jimenez oxidates very easily. Okay, that's why the Pedro Jimenez and the fino is made in the sherry wines because they oxidate very fast.
Yeah, and also kind of neutral grape variety, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so, and because there is also another great difference, or in terms of administration maybe, but Priorat is also DOQ and Montsant is a DO. Can you maybe tell us what is actually the difference in terms of DOQ and DO? So what are the terms?
Yes. See, in the DOQ is always on top of DO, and the difference is they have a very strict regulations on the yield production. So you can only produce 6 tons per hectare in the Priorat, but you can produce 12 tons per hectare in Montsant. So that makes one of the biggest difference. Of course, this is well adapted to the soil, because when you grow into these rocks, you will never produce 12 tons per hectare, of course. But they just differentiated on this. And then another difference is when you get the wine, before you press the wine, you cannot extract more than 63% of juice when pressing in Priorat. So from 100 kilos, you can only get 63 liters of wine. If you press more, you need to throw away the leftovers. You cannot go and press. So this is a really high quality free run juice.
And why is that?
In the other appellations, you can go higher.
And why is that, or how does it have the quality?
Because the berries are smaller. If you press more, then you extract too much bitterness. So it's really well regulated on, because Priorat doesn't want to extract the bitterness on the tannins. Also, alcohol is higher in the Priorat. You are not allowed to pick up the grapes below 13.5 for reds and 13 for whites. Instead, Montsant, you can pick the berries much before they get 13.5. So then you get also, so the regulations are at this level, and the regulation happens in every step, like irrigation and no irrigation, like yield, and then pressing, pressure, and you get all this, and at the end, you get less amount from a Priorat vineyard, and you get bigger amounts from a Montsant. So then it has to be reflected into the price. So that's why sometimes Priorat, it gets a little bit more expensive than Montsant wines, because you can extract much less, and then the cost is always adding up into the Priorat wines, and it gets a little bit higher.
And is it also very strict in terms of aging restriction? So how long can it be in a barrel? Or
no, in terms of aging, the only thing is in Priorat, you cannot do aging in vessels bigger than 600. So you can always do aging in 225, in 300, but no higher than 600. If you do aging in vessels that are higher than 600 liters, you cannot put on the label that your wine has been aging in oak, for example. So if I'm using a big tank of oak, I cannot put into the wine that it's been aging in oak. That's the regulations of the DO, because they consider they need smaller oak, so they consider they need more influence from the oak rather than using big volumes. At Perinet, we work with all sizes. We use 225 for Cabernet, 300 for Syrah and Carignan, and 600 for Grenache. So we try to adapt the amount of tannin, the amount of tannins contained into the grapes related to the surface area of the barrel. So we try to adapt to balance the wine to get a nice balance between the tannin from the grape and the tannin from the barrel.
Mm. And I think then that's a great starting point for the grapes, right? So how is it actually differ, or where is actually the difference between Grenache and Carignan?